Is the Marvels destined to fail? And before we get started, no, I am not the Marvels hater. I'm not a Captain Marvel hater, a Brie Larson hater, whatever it is. I don't hate on it. And I do want the Marvels to succeed. I really do. But unfortunately, this movie has a lot going against it that is not really kind of its own fault in a way. For example, the cast. I actually think it's a pretty phenomenal cast. We have Brie Larson, Iman Vellani, who people really love, as Miss Marvel. Sam Jackson's returning as Nick Fury. Park Seo-joon is making his MCU debut, who's a K-drama actor that I really love. We have a new villain coming in, Dar-Ben, and people are excited to see Photon. You could argue the cast is quite amazing, but there are still people out there who don't like Brie Larson. We're going to go into detail, really, in that in a bit, but let's first talk about the biggest problem that this movie has against it. And unfortunately, it's the budget. This movie, according to Forbes, has a budget of over $274.8 million, which makes it one of the biggest budgets for any MCU movie of all time. Let me put this in perspective for you. There are only 3 other MCU movies that have had a bigger budget than the Marvels. Coming in at number 1, Avengers Endgame, obviously as you would expect, at $400 million. Number 2, Avengers Age of Ultron, $365 million. And number 3, Avengers Infinity War, $300 million. Coming in at number 4 is the Marvels, with its budget a whopping $274.8 million. Just so you know, number 5 is a tie for Thor Love and Thunder, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and Captain America Civil War at $250 million. And then at number 6 is the first Avengers film at $225 million. Now, why is this a problem? Why is this going against the movie? Well, just to put that in perspective for you, the movie's going to have to make around $450 to $550 million to break even. Not make money, but break even. And let me just give you this example. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania made $476 million. And I would argue, definitely, there was more hype for that movie than there is for the Marvels. Now, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 did a whopping $845.6 million at the box office, but keep in mind, they've been around since Phase 2. They were involved in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, and most of the cast is pretty loved by the entire fandom. Plus, keep in mind, this was supposed to be the last Guardians of the Galaxy film with the current cast. A lot of people thought there were going to be a lot of deaths, so there's a lot of intrigue there. A lot of people went to see that movie because they wanted to, 1, see a good Guardians of the Galaxy movie because they haven't let us down yet, and 2, see how that was actually going to end. That's not really the case for the Marvels. Again, some people out there don't really like the cast, but if we go back to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, with it making a little bit over $470 million with more hype, that brings us to the next problem that the Marvels unfortunately has against it, and that is promotion for it, the hype for it. Unfortunately, right now, we are in strikes. The cast, they can't promote this film. They're not promoting this film. In fact, right now, the only person from the movie who's really promoting it is the director. And unfortunately, she said some things in some interviews as of recent that have pissed some people off. We're not going to dive into that. You can find them yourself. But the strikes are going to affect the movie because the promotions, or the lack thereof, are going to affect the movies. In fact, industry data analysts suggest that about 10 to 20% of movies are going to be affected. Each movie will be affected by 10 to 20% because the cast cannot promote these films. And again, no one from the cast right now is promoting the film. Now, that's going to drastically affect the movie, but we have to talk about really what defines a success. What would make this movie a success or failure? Because it's pretty important to know what that actually means. And we'll talk about that in just a bit. But first, a big thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Many of you may know that I personally use HelloFresh and I love it. It makes cooking fun, easy, and it's affordable. And that's why it's America's #1 meal kit delivered straight to your door. And you might not know that they actually have seasonal recipes. Right now, since it's summer, they have their new Fresh and Fit summer menu. So if you're trying to get that beach bud, but you're also trying to eat really great tasting food, it's perfect for you. Right now, it's peak time for summer produce, and HelloFresh makes sure you get all the best picks all season long. Their ingredients travel from the farm to your door in less than 7 days for quality you can taste. If you are trying to impress your friends this summer by doing some cooking for them, HelloFresh makes it super simple. They give you all of the ingredients and tell you exactly how to make each meal. And the best part is, right now you can go to hellofresh.com/50cosmic and use code 50cosmic for 50% off plus 15% off the next 2 months. That's hellofresh.com/50cosmic and use code 50cosmic for 50% off plus 15% off the next 2 months. Now, what would define a success for this movie? Well, as I mentioned, the movie would have to make around $450 to $550 million just to break even. And you would never say a movie that broke even was a success. That's not really how it works. But what number would this movie have to hit to actually make it a success? Well, unfortunately, it would have to hit around $600 to $750 million to be considered a success. Now, Captain Marvel 1 hit $1 billion, but that was before the hate started. Some people didn't know, well, really everybody didn't really know what to expect from the movie. Plus, you have to take into mind and consideration that this movie was before Avengers Endgame, and you had to watch this movie going into Avengers Endgame as well. Plus, it was set in the past, so that was even more intrigue and interest for the movie. However, that is all gone. It doesn't have any of that going for it right now. Captain Marvel 2 or the Marvels doesn't have all that hype and all that excitement and all that mystery concerning it. Going into this movie, it has none of these things, unfortunately. Plus, not to mention, superhero fatigue is a real thing for some people. And unfortunately, the last project that Marvel Studios did was Secret Invasion, which kind of bombed. But what is directly tied to Secret Invasion immediately following it up? The Marvels. So some people already have a bad taste in their mouth for this movie, unfortunately. And again, that's not even the movie's fault. Now, there is hope for the movie, fortunately. I'm not sure it's all going to happen. A lot of things would have to fall into place, but I do hope the movie succeeds, and here's a few ways how it could. One is the strikes could actually end. We've heard word that negotiations are going kind of well right now. Now, we've heard that before, all for it to turn around and just, fall apart. But right now, we've heard rumors that things are going pretty well. If the strikes end, then the cast could very quickly and right away start to promote the film. That would definitely help it, and it could probably get rid of that 10 to 20% negative effect that the strike would have on that. So that would be good. Let's hope the strikes end just in general pretty soon, but also so the Marvels can be promoted properly. The second thing is the film could simply be amazing. Let's hope. And if it is simply amazing, then the Rotten Tomato scores will be good for it. Now, if they're bad, it's going to really, really, really hurt the movie. But if they're good, it could do a lot of great things for this movie and really help it hit those numbers. And one of the last things that's just kind of a positive that happened just because of the strikes actually and everything going on is Dune was delayed. It was going to have to compete with Dune, which would have been pretty detrimental to it. So fortunately for the Marvels, it does not have to compete with Dune anymore. So there is hope for the movie, and go see the movie for yourself and form your own opinion about it before you kind of take everybody's word for it, because we know there are people out there who just hate Brie Larson in general. They just don't like her for whatever reason, for the hype. It is what it is. There are people out there and they're going to review bomb it. They're going to do a lot of stuff. Please form your own opinion. And if you end up not liking it, that's fine. That's your opinion. And if you didn't like the first Captain Marvel film, I feel ya. It wasn't the greatest movie of all time. It was one of the lower MCU films. I didn't hate it by any means, but yeah, it's kind of just fine. However, I am hopeful for the future. I'm hopeful for the Marvels. I hope it does really well. Again, the cast is pretty phenomenal. The characters are pretty great. And I hope this is a turnaround for the MCU. I even hear that it's going to connect to the larger MCU in a pretty big way. We're going to see some incursions is what I heard. So there's a lot of excitement in my mind for the movie, and I hope for a lot of other fans as well. I really hope all of these things that are going to affect it don't affect it too bad, but unfortunately, I do think right now this movie is somewhat destined to fail just because of everything going against it. But hey, let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. Are you excited for this movie? No? Let me know all your thoughts. Please let me know what you think is going to happen in this movie and also to this movie. What is its performance going to be in the box office? We don't know. Hopefully it's enough to at least break even. Maybe could boost up those numbers, a couple 100 million more to be considered a success. But we'll have to see. In the meantime, subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.